whistleblower has reported to the Senate Judiciary Committee Democratic ranking member Dick Durbin that FBI Director Kash Patel's use of his jet, the government jet, the FBI jet, has harmed actual investigations. The whistleblower says that in December of 2025, when there was a mass shooting at Brown University, Kash Patel was on his government FBI director jet in Florida, we are told, and that there was only one other available jet. But Patel had ordered it to be put on standby for another team. And that meant that during this mass shooting, an evidence review team based in the Washington, Virginia area that would normally immediately respond to a major crisis, a major crime scene like this, was delayed. They could not use the plane. And instead, they drove through the night of the 13th and the early morning of the 14th to get to Providence, Rhode Island from Virginia. They happened to also drive through a snowstorm to get there, but they were significantly delayed, according to this whistleblower's account. And by the way, also according to multiple sources that spoke to Ken and to me.
You guys have also been reporting on the various trips that he's taken. There's the Olympics just the other day where he was seen shotgunning a beer with the U.S. men's hockey team. But there's also been a number of trips to Nashville to see his girlfriend and the like.
That's right. When he was basically just a Trump ally, hoping Trump would be reelected for a second term, Kash Patel gave an interview in which he said they should ground Chris Wray's director jet and said that it cost $15,000 every time it took off, which is not far off actually in dollar amount. The rules require the FBI director to travel on this jet so that in a time of crisis, he can quickly be returned to secure communications or to Washington to manage said crisis. The issue inside, and this goes to your first question, Katie, the issue is that inside the FBI, agents and operatives are growing increasingly frustrated and frankly disdainful of how the director is choosing to use the jet. Whether it's for personal or for business reasons, his choices of where to fly, when, is having an impact, in their view, on the actual mission. And now Senator Dick Durbin has released a letter, which we obtained a copy of today, in which he's asking the Inspector General for the Department of Justice and the Government Accountability Office to begin to investigate his use of the jet in ways that Durbin says are harming actual criminal investigations.
Something just detonated inside the Federal Bureau of Investigation that has current agents, former directors, and senior law enforcement veterans expressing a level of public disgust that nobody can remember seeing directed at an FBI director in the entire history of that institution. A whistleblower just told the Senate Judiciary Committee that the director of the FBI is misusing government aircraft in ways that are actively harming criminal investigations. Real cases, real crime scenes, real victims waiting for federal evidence response teams that could not get there because the director had the plane. And then the video dropped, the one the whole world has now seen. The director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, shotgunning beers, celebrating in a locker room on a government jet that cost American taxpayers potentially millions of dollars for the trip. While somewhere in the United States, evidence was going uncollected and cases were going uninvestigated because the planes that should have been available for actual law enforcement work were being used for something else entirely. Make sure you're subscribed to The John Brown Show, because what I am about to walk you through is not just a story about one embarrassing video or one bad trip. This is a story about what happens to one of the world's most respected law enforcement institutions when the person placed at its head has no business being there and knows it. Here is the specific incident that a federal whistleblower just brought to the Senate Judiciary Committee. In December of last year, a mass shooting occurred at Brown University. An evidence response team based in the Washington, Virginia area was ready to deploy. These are specially trained agents whose entire professional purpose is to respond rapidly to major crime scenes and collect evidence that can make or break a prosecution. Time matters at crime scenes. The longer the gap between the incident and the evidence collection, the greater the risk that critical material is compromised, contaminated, or lost. The director had the FBI jet in Florida. A second jet had been placed on standby for another team at his direction. That meant the evidence response team had no aircraft available, so they drove. Through the night of December 13th and into the early morning of December 14th, through a snowstorm, from Virginia to Providence, Rhode Island, arriving significantly delayed according to the whistleblower's account. Share this video because the hypocrisy buried inside this scandal goes back years and was captured on video before this director ever took the position he now holds. Before he was FBI director, this same individual gave an interview criticizing the use of the director's government jet. He said the plane cost $15,000 every time it took off. He suggested grounding it. He framed the director's use of the aircraft as wasteful. As a symbol of the institutional excess he was going to clean up when his people got into power. That interview exists. The footage is preserved. The words were said publicly and on record by a man who now uses that same jet to fly to his girlfriend's concerts in Nashville, to wrestling matches in Las Vegas where he lives because he refuses to relocate to Washington the way every other FBI director in history has done, to the Olympics in Milan where he was photographed doing exactly what he criticized his predecessor for doing, except louder and on camera in a locker room full of professional athletes. Think about what it takes to say those things publicly and then do the opposite so completely and so visibly that even your supporters cannot defend it. Make sure you're subscribed, because what current and former FBI officials are saying about this director is something that has genuinely no precedent in the modern history of the Bureau. Current FBI agents are disgusted. Former officials who supported this director's appointment are disgusted. MAGA-aligned former FBI agents are going on record to say that this is not how any FBI director has ever behaved, and that the locker room video was an embarrassment to the institution. The reporter covering this story said she has never seen this level of disgust from current and former FBI officials directed at a sitting director. And these are people who have spent careers maintaining institutional loyalty, even through controversial periods. What breaks that loyalty is not policy disagreement. It is watching the person at the top of your institution treat it as a personal plaything, using the resources built for law enforcement as a vehicle for self-promotion, converting the prestige of the office into locker room access at sporting events that he would never have been anywhere near without the appointment, flying government aircraft to personal engagements while evidence response teams drive through snowstorms to reach mass shooting scenes. The cost of the Milan trip alone is estimated at potentially millions of dollars when the flight, hotel rooms, and security detail are combined. A security detail that has reportedly been used not just to protect the director, but to provide personal security for his girlfriend and her companions while they were out socializing. Specially trained FBI agents, performing personal security work for private individuals, while missing persons cases go cold and evidence response teams drive through December snowstorms. Share this video because the investigation Senator Dick Durbin just formally requested connects this scandal to a much larger pattern of institutional corruption. Durbin sent a letter to the Department of Justice Inspector General and the Government Accountability Office requesting an investigation into the director's use of government aircraft. The specific framing of that request is legally significant. It is not a complaint about optics or inappropriate behavior. It is a formal allegation that the aircraft misuse has harmed actual criminal investigations. That is the threshold that triggers serious institutional review, not embarrassment. Concrete damage to law enforcement functions that the Bureau exists to perform. Think about what it means for the FBI director to face a formal investigation request from a senior senator specifically alleging that his conduct has impaired criminal cases. That is not political posturing. That is a documented whistleblower account reaching the Senate through official channels describing specific incidents where specific investigations were delayed because the director had the planes tied up for personal or discretionary purposes. Make sure you're subscribed, because the resource diversion question extends far beyond aircraft and into the most sensitive ongoing investigations the Bureau is supposed to be conducting. 1,000 FBI agents were reportedly pulled from their existing caseloads and assigned to a single task. Redacting a name from the Epstein files, 1,000 agents. Cases they were working before that reassignment did not pause, while those agents spent their time on document review. Missing persons investigations continued without the agents assigned to them. Child exploitation cases continued without the agents working them. Violent crime investigations continued without the resources that had been allocated to them. The FBI director and the attorney general made a decision about where 1,000 agents should spend their time, and the answer was not solving crimes. It was processing documents to remove a specific name from a specific set of files. What name? Whose files? The answer to that question is not a mystery to anyone paying attention. The political motivation for that resource allocation is not subtle, and the cost of that decision is measured in cases that did not get solved, in victims who did not get justice, in evidence that went uncollected, in perpetrators who remained unidentified. Share this video because the women and children whose cases are not being investigated while FBI resources are deployed elsewhere deserve to be named in this story. And Renee Good and Alex Prey were killed in Minneapolis. The FBI has refused to cooperate with Minnesota state investigators in sharing evidence related to those homicides. 2 American citizens killed. A state investigation proceeding without federal cooperation. The FBI director was in a locker room in Milan. His agency will not share evidence with the state investigators trying to solve these murders. A woman named Nancy Guthrie has been missing from Tucson for nearly a month. Her daughter is a nationally known journalist who was supposed to be covering the Olympics in Milan for a major broadcast network. Instead, her mother is missing, and the FBI is the agency that has the resources and the mandate to assist in major missing persons investigations. While 1,000 of its agents were processing Epstein documents, and its director was in an Italian locker room celebrating a hockey victory that he flew to on a government jet. Think about what it feels like to be waiting for the FBI to help find your missing mother while the director of that agency is on camera, shotgunning beers and posting about how much he loves America. Make sure you're subscribed because the broader picture of this administration's law enforcement leadership explains why the FBI's institutional collapse matters so far beyond any individual incident. The Surgeon General nominee did not complete a medical residency, is not board certified in any specialty, is a wellness influencer whose public health positions are at odds with the medical consensus on vaccines at the exact moment that measles is experiencing a resurgence in the United States. A disease that had been essentially eradicated is coming back, and the person being nominated to lead public health communications for the entire country sells herbs and spirituality as healthcare solutions. The Attorney General responds to questions about the Department of Justice by discussing economic indicators. The FBI director uses government aircraft for personal travel while evidence response teams drive through snowstorms. 1,000 agents are reassigned from crime investigations to document redaction. The agency, with the world's most sophisticated investigative capabilities, is being run by someone who used those capabilities to gain locker room access at sporting events. This is what institutional corruption looks like when it operates at the top of every law enforcement agency simultaneously. Not a single bad actor in an otherwise functional system. A simultaneous replacement of institutional purpose with personal and political service at every level of leadership at the same time. Share this video because the midterm elections are the accountability mechanism that can reverse what is happening to these institutions before the damage becomes permanent. The cases going uninvestigated right now will not automatically reopen when leadership changes. The evidence not collected at crime scenes because response teams drove through snowstorms instead of flying will not be recovered. The missing persons cases that did not receive FBI resources will not benefit from those resources retroactively. Some of this damage is immediate and permanent. The window for preventing further damage is the election in November. Every Republican member of Congress who knows what is happening inside these agencies and has chosen silence over accountability will be on a ballot. Every senator who could have convened oversight hearings and chose not to will face voters who are now watching a video of the FBI director shotgunning beers while evidence teams drive through snowstorms to reach mass shooting scenes. The FBI was the world's premier law enforcement institution. What it is becoming under the direction of someone who criticized his predecessor for using a government jet and then used that same jet to attend concerts and hockey games is something that current and former agents are describing with a single word: disgrace. This story is just getting started. Stay tuned.